Welcome to the Design Review Board meeting of October 24th, 2024. The DRB meeting is now called to order. Please refrain from talking among yourselves during the meeting, and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones at this time. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. City staff will be submitting the questions and comments in real time to the appropriate person. Current DRB agendas and staff reports are available by visiting our website at www.glendaleca.gov. Records of decisions for all projects will be posted online on the Planning Division's website. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and DRB appeal is available from staff. Please note that any appeal of a case heard today must be filed within 15 calendar days. Of the DRB decision date. Meetings are also archived on the city website for viewing anytime at glendaleca.gov/agendas. Roll call. Madam Chair Lockruff.
Present.
Board Member Chagayan.
Present.
Board Member Welch.
Present.
And Board Member Kaskanian and Board Member Simonian are both. Reports regarding posting of agenda. The agenda for the October 24th, 2024 regular meeting of the Glendale Design Review Board was posted on the city's website on October 17th, 2024, and on the bulletin board outside City Hall on October 21st, 2024. Approval of minutes. We have approval of Design Review Board minutes from October 10th, 2024. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Great.
Okay. Chagayan. And then second by Board Member Welch. Okay, oral communication. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. Design Review Board may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or discussion. I do not have any oral communication cards at this time.
Correct. I did not receive any
Any board member comments at this time?
this time. No.
Okay. We don't have any old business, so we will start with new business. We have one item today. Located at 1712 Glorieta Avenue, DRB case number 003436-2024. And just for the record, officially the meeting started at 5:03 this evening. Okay, so this item before you is located at 1712 Glorieta. And (1712) Gloria is just located just east of Cañada Boulevard, literally between Verdugo Road on the other side of the park, Glorieta Park, and Cañada further towards the west, but Cañada literally is much closer. It's literally a few doors in. Off of Cañada, we have the subject site. That particular site is zoned in that area R1, floor area ratio District 2, so it's low density residential. And again, it's very close to the Glorieta Park. It's sort of like a small, windy road portion of Glorieta between Cañada and Verdugo Road. So this particular home is sort of at the beginning of Cañada. So again, the lot is 7,765 square feet. Frontage is approximately 55 feet. Gently sloping from north to south, but the house is located on a relatively flat portion of the lot. The shape of the lot is irregular. Development currently there is an existing one-story 1,246 square foot single-family house built in 1931. These are pictures of the existing home that's currently there. It's a single family with a detached garage at the back. Driveway is located off on the east side of the property. And the proposal is to demolish the existing house and the garage. They're proposing a new 2-story, 3,100 square foot, single-family house with a 2-car attached garage, accessible from the existing, obviously the street that's currently there, which is Glorietta, so it only fronts one street. Still occupying a portion and using a portion of that existing driveway, but it would have to be enlarged in order to accommodate that circulation from and to the existing, from the new parking garage attached to the, and facing the front of the house. The lower level proposes 1,736 square feet. The lower level, the upper level proposes 1,364 square feet. Attached garage proposes 448 square feet, an 85 square foot front covered porch, and at the rear, a 440 square foot trellis attached to the rear of the house, and then the overall building height is 27 feet 6 inches. These are some renderings of the proposed project. Sort of like more of a contemporary, modern design with some traditional elements, which is discussed in the report, so I won't go into too much detail regarding the design. They're using a combination of materials or cladding, stucco, with the base being like stone veneer, sort of like an off-white color, and then the trims, fascia, windows, darker colors to create that contrast, and then wood details for wood for the garage door, and then the front entry, again, emulating more of that contemporary sort of aesthetics with some traditional elements. So in terms of context, the subject site is abutting a 2-story home, which is located on the south east corner of Cañada and Glorietta. But the majority of the homes in that particular street area, there's a combination of some split story, but there's a 1-story directly adjacent to the, it would be to the east. And then across the street also, again, there are some, it's 1-story with some split level homes like above the garages to that effect. So again, the street is sort of characterized by somewhat of a narrower portion of Glorietta, kind of winds, and so some of the lots there are somewhat more irregular. You can see that there's one off to the little further to the east that has kind of have like a more of a triangular shape, kind of off to the where the bend is. So different lots, different shapes, but this particular is slightly irregular.
I'm sorry, but while she's presenting, if we could not speak, thank you.
Again, a little more information or some context.
I'm sorry, but while she's speaking,
This is the last one, we need 2 more.
okay, when you come up, we can. Come up, please.
Okay, so I'm still in my presentation, so if we can please keep, voices down, I'd appreciate it, because it's a little distracting. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. May I continue?
Yes, please
Thank you.
continue.
So here's the proposed site plan, where again, they're proposing a decorative driveway for the new improved driveway that they're proposing at the front, sort of following more the contouring of the existing site and the topography, again, following the gently sloping terrain, and we've kind of discussed that a little bit. So the proposed floor plans, and this is the proposed design, which I've already gone into a little detail regarding what they're proposing in terms of the design elements and also the overall architecture of the building. So staff does have some recommendations, and they're outlined in your report, in the staff report. Specifically regarding modifying or revising some of the mass and scale in terms of reducing the plate heights. Again, to better address and soften the mass and scale of the building, especially facing the street. There is some discussion that staff would like to bring to your attention. Another point would be to further set in the second floor from the sides, bringing it in more. There, in particular, there seems to be less of a setback or recess of the second floor on the east side. So we'd like to keep it more, we're suggesting more balanced with the opposite side where there is a little more recess from the west side. So again, stepping in the second floor further would also help relieve building mass. And another comment, that suggestion that staff has outlined in the report would be regarding the garage being proposed at the front. We're suggesting for it to be relocated as a detached garage, similar to the existing condition at the back, which is also consistent with most of the homes, with some exceptions. The neighborhood has a detached garage at the back. And the last comment we suggest is to use a higher quality window material as opposed to vinyl. For example, fiberglass or aluminum clad, and also replacing the sliding windows with casement or hung operation would be appropriate. That would conclude staff comments. We are, again, recommending approval with those conditions.
Thank you very much. Does the board have questions at this time?
Given the conditions are, pretty extensive, were those communicated with the
Yes.
applicant?
Yes, they
Okay.
were, in fact, they were originally conveyed to the applicant during the original pre-application stages. However, the applicant, they did make some changes overall to the design compared to what it looked like before. Staff had some significant concerns regarding mass and scale with the previous design, so this was the design that the applicant came back with. Definitely some changes. However, still staff did raise the same concerns regarding the mass and scale, reducing the plate heights, and to relocate the garage at the back.
Okay.
The
all right.
applicant decided that they wanted to proceed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions as well?
No, I think more for the architect.
Okay, then we can proceed. Okay, can the applicant, the project manager, please come forward and state your name? Oh, stand at the microphone. Oh, that's okay. Yeah, so state your name.
I haven't done public
okay.
speaking since high school, probably.
Okay, please state your name and
My name is Lucina Karapetian. I'm here on behalf of my husband as well. Unfortunately, he's a little under the weather, so he wasn't able to make it.
okay.
First, I want to thank you guys for your time and allowing me to present the project. I was raised in a Glendale since I was 9 years old. Just a quick backstory. When I got married, my husband and I couldn't really afford Glendale, honestly, so we moved elsewhere. We sacrificed 5 years living away from our family and friends with the intention of, because we didn't want to rent, we wanted to buy a house, build some equity, and for the next 5-6 years, all we did is save every penny we have with the hopes of moving back closer to family and friends. We are now a family of 3, soon to be 4, hopefully extend, God willing, in the future, just one more. As far as the conditions go, I wanted to really quickly go over them. I'll make it quick. I know one of the conditions was the garage. One of the biggest reasons we really wanted an attached garage is not just wants, it was more like needs. I have a hip issue and a lower back issue, especially since after my first childbirth. And the idea of moving, just going straight into the garage with groceries and 2 kids soon. I have a 21-month-old and another due in December. It's just for safety reasons, one, for my kids, and just the idea of being able to just go straight into my house with groceries rather than going all the way in and then taking the kids back and forth and then groceries back and forth. It's just one, medical reasons, two, safety for the kids. Having 2 small children in this day and age is just, you guys already know how it is. As far as the setback of the second floor, we actually, after our first meeting with the city officials, we did go ahead and redesign the whole thing. As one of the staff members mentioned earlier, the design was completely different in the beginning. We obviously, in the beginning, we wanted to show what we wanted, but we compromised so much on it, and this was pretty much the best design that we could have come up with that was also appealing for the city of Glendale, because I love Glendale. I grew up in Glendale. I wouldn't do anything that would ruin the appeal of the streets of Glendale in any way or form. As far as the ceiling heights go, we are well under what the permitted, levels, permitted feet are. And actually, I want to mention, before we bought this house, I myself contacted City of Glendale via telephone and via phone number, because I wanted to make sure there were certain things that I was going to be allowed to do. I was emailed the zone that we're in. I was emailed the allowance of whether we can have a 2-story or not, whether we can have a pool in the backyard or not. Just things that were very important to me prior to going, forward and buying the house, because it was a very serious step for us, obviously. The other reason coming with the detached garage, I'm gonna go back real quick. One of the other reasons we really would appreciate an approval for an attached garage is because of the small kids. We would really like them to have some backyard left, because we're trying really hard to work with what we have, and we are trying our best to also meet all the requirements of City of Glendale. In no way are we trying to overstep your policies and procedures. It's just sometimes it feels a little unfair in a way where I'm going to struggle with a detached garage when I'm going to be facing my front neighbors with an attached garage for the rest of my life. It also seems like the policies and the regulations, it's starting to be a little bit more subjective than objective. With that said, I'm going to check one more condition. I think I probably forgot. I apologize. Sorry, very nervous.
It's okay.
As far as the windows goes, we are more than willing to do whatever it takes. We want the highest quality
That
windows.
indicates it's just a warning when you hear that noise.
Oh,
So,
sorry,
yeah.
You have to
to wrap it
okay.
up, that's
So
it.
as far as the windows goes, we have no issues. We will do whatever it takes, whatever quality you guys want us. We want the best quality for the city of Glendale and for ourselves as well.
Right.
And
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry,
Um,
I'm very nervous.
And do we have questions for the applicant or the owner, or would, we'll wait for
You're
the
the owner,
designer?
right?
You're the owner.
Okay,
Right,
yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
the owner.
so I think we'll
Thank
wait
you.
and ask the questions to the designer. Thank you. Can the project manager?
You guys want, can we go at that? Can we go after?
No, you'll get a chance to have a rebuttal at the very end, but if you could come up now, please. If you're the designer, thank you. And state your name.
Hi, I'm Vardan Semyon. I'm the designer.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Any questions you guys have, I can answer, or I can just comment on what we talked about in consideration to the conditions.
Okay, that would be great.
As far as from the front, the current original house is built almost like 12 feet in front of what we're building because of current standards. So we had to push back the building almost 12 feet back from where the existing original house is to give a 25 feet setback. So we lost almost 12 feet from already the backyard. And then if you look at the site plan, you can see how small that is. Our future goal is maybe to put a pool back there, but if you do put a garage and you put a pool, then there's no landscape left over for, like she said, for kids to have like a backyard. And the 2 neighbors across the street, directly across the street, have garages that face their house. So it's not like it's inconsistent. The neighbor next door has a 2-story house. As far as us, we were trying to get some kind of compromise from planning department too, because there are some needs that they had as far as the heights. They were trying to get a new house. They want that nice ceiling height. And we were suggested by planning to keep it at 9 feet. And it felt very unfair for a new house, you know. Any questions you guys have, I can address.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Chikoye.
Yeah, I do have a couple questions. Is the proposed house utilizing the same finished floor elevation as the existing home?
I believe so.
You believe so?
Yes.
Okay. It's hard to tell from your sections because it just seems like it's a completely flat site when it's a downward slope and there's, you know, at least a 4-foot elevation drop.
Can you guys bring up the elevation?
Or the second.
So there is a gentle slope, as you can see the front.
Yeah.
By the time it gets to the back, it gains almost like 2 feet.
And then, but that front entry
I believe,
elevation is,
I believe we dropped it.
you dropped it
Because
because
the
the
original
existing
house
is higher.
was a raised floor, I
Right.
believe, and then when we demolished that, we went with a slab, so then the backyard wouldn't be so high off the floor. or
Okay.
else- And also, we came below what the zoning standards were, and we were asked to reduce that. This is like a second time we're being asked to reduce those. You know, we kind of compromised on our end, and we're way below what the zoning standards for the setbacks and the height limit is.
Okay, just one other question. The new driveway, proposed driveway, so is the existing driveway a shared driveway? Or it looks like you're kind of doubling the size of what was
Existing
there.
driveway is a driveway that leads to the back. The new driveway, since it has a 2-car garage in the front, we need it to be wider so you can access both garage spaces.
And that's by code, Milka? To widen the entire garage to access 2 spaces?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, they just need to provide sufficient ingress and egress to and from a parking space. So for example, they could have a 10-foot wide, you know, at the driveway apron right when you first approach, right, on private property. Then it could kind of expand into the spaces. So again, it doesn't necessarily need to be a 20-foot wide driveway at the front adjacent to the property line.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I guess my only other question would be if initially, it sounds like you came forward with a different proposal, you have redesigned, which we appreciate, but it sounds to me that some of the initial high-level concerns were never really addressed. Is there a reason
We
why?
compromised on our end. We're hoping planning, and it was planning said that they still wanted some, and we want to bring it to design review board, and because this is something the owner wants. We're making a brand new house. They're gonna be here for their families all their lives,
Right.
so you start initially going, you know, what your wants,
Okay,
and this is what they want, and we want to push as much as we can within the reasonable code.
right.
And we did. We originally did compromise a lot, and this is the second time we're being asked to compromise. And there's little things to notice, like on the second floor. If you look at the floor plan, we have 2 bedrooms on 2 sides, and the middle, which is the staircase coming up. But the master bedroom is only 12 feet wide. Pushing anything further in, you're making things so much smaller. Nothing gets left over. It's not the biggest property. It's not the biggest house.
Right.
You know. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay. And you want to come and speak as well? Please state your name.
My name is Danny Manasarian, and I'm the consultant on the project. I've been helping, process the paperwork and getting to this point. Good evening, commissioners. Thank you, Milka, for helping us get this project to a point where staff feels comfortable approving this project with these conditions. When we started the project, the owners had a vision of what they wanted their dream house to look like. We had multiple meetings with the owners and conversations with the city staff recommending changes to get this project to a point where the proposed house will be in keeping with the design guidelines as well as be architecturally compatible with the rest of the neighborhood. Since we saw other homes nearby, like 1719 Glorieta, which is across the street, and 2820 Kenyatta Boulevard, which has a garage setback 6 feet from the property line, we thought proposing a garage at the front, 25 feet away from the street, and fully integrating it with the overall structure, which is recommended by the guidelines, would be somewhat compatible with this neighborhood. Condition number 2 mentions stepping the second floor further away from the ground level along the east side. We have gone through multiple versions of breaking the mass on the second floor to accomplish this 3-bedroom design. Stepping the second floor further away would shrink the width of the master bedroom, currently at
You need to
12.1,
wrap it up. Thank
Uh-huh.
you.
which is smaller than the average, which is 14. Newly built homes can have higher ceilings. We tried to meet the owner's needs by adding a gable roof on top of the garage and a porch with a fascia to minimize the ceiling height when viewed from the street. If I have to wrap it up, I'll
Yes, please.
I read the comments, and I appreciate how involved the city is regarding preserving the characteristics of our neighborhoods. We believe we've done our best to meet the owner's needs at the same time, follow the design guidelines. At this point, we're seeking guidance and direction from you, the Design Review Board, to help us make the best decision possible for the owners of this property as well as our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Board Member Welsh, I realized I wanted to check in to make sure you didn't have questions for the applicant. Okay, thank you. Okay, well then we'll open it up to the rest of the public as well. Let's see. Can Gennaro Prado please come forward? Right. And your time will be limited, so once you hear, how much time do they have? 2 minutes, just so that you know.
Well, I live next door,
Okay.
so
Can you state your name, please?
Genaro Prado,
Thank you.
and if they build that two-story house, you know, for me, I pay $1,000 my mortgage, $1,000 on my mortgage, so we can have parking, no problem with the parking, a view to the mountains, and also privacy. That will be invaded. I won't have that privilege anymore. And also, I'm absolutely opposed to that project.
And what is the address of which property?
1706
Okay,
Glorieta Avenue,
thank you.
okay?
Okay, thank you.
That's about it.
Okay, thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. Thank you. Okay. Sheikh Zargarian. Hello, welcome, and again,
Okay, my last name is Zargarian. I am the neighbor that we are sharing a wall from our backyard
Okay.
with the new house that they're gonna build.
Mm.
So basically, more than half of my backyard is blocked, the way that they are showing those flags, the model.
Mm.
And the view that I have to the mountain, also, that one is gonna be gone. So as a two-story, I do not agree to have two-story because our neighborhood, it's all of them one story, only one house. It's two-story, which is very old, long time ago. And then, I don't know how the project is gonna be approved. Just that my backyard that I am sharing, our neighbors, our houses are neighbor with the house. Our backyards are neighbor with the backyard. So me and my other neighbor, our backyards are like next to each other. Now my backyard, that before was their backyard, completely is gonna be gone. Because the way that they are showing, like, I'm not gonna have view. Like, it's gonna be a building in front of me.
Could you state your address? Sorry, are you on
808 Kenyatta Boulevard.
Kenyatta? Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I measured today before coming, it's 29 feet already, like from my backyard is in, which, when they're gonna build, it's 28 to 29 feet. My backyard is gonna be blocked, that I see the mountain, I see the view.
That
and-
indicates your time is ending.
Sorry?
That noise indicates that you need to wrap it up, so.
So my time is up?
You have,
I'm sorry?
20 seconds, starting now.
It's a warning. I think if everybody could,
20?
yes,
20.
20.
Yes.
Okay.
yes,
So
so
our
that-
time is more shorter, but when they were explaining what they're gonna build, their hours was,
yes,
you let them
as
to
the
that one.
applicant.
okay, anyway, I don't agree with this
Okay,
project.
thank you.
thank you.
Okay. Anna Arhanian, and please state your name.
Hi, my name is Anna Haronian.
Yeah.
I live at 1716 Glorieta Avenue. I live right next to this property that they're going to demolish. And what I have to say are three things. First off, the lots in that block of houses, that there are only 6 houses in our block, and all are cottages built in the 30s, 40s, and the largest house in that street is about 1,400. All the rest are 900, 1,100. Mine is 1,068 square feet. So to have that big house built in the middle of the block is going to look like a white elephant. It's not going to, it's not proportionate to the architecture of the street, nor the neighborhood. I haven't seen any house of 3,100 square feet around my area at all. The largest one is the one in the at the corner of 1706 Glorieta, which is the 2-story. That one, it has over 9,000 square feet lot. It is in the corner lot of Glorieta and Cañada. So actually, it doesn't seem like it is intrusive to the neighborhood. This house is gonna be next to mine. Mine is, the width of my lot is about 40 feet. It's a it's a small, well, I have to say what I have to say, I'm sorry. Let me tell you, if you see my house is there, right there, that one, exactly.
Correct.
So when they build this one with a double garage, I'm gonna have a white block I'm gonna go to outside my house, I'm gonna see a wall. Right now, I have a buffer because I have 2 driveways, my driveway and the next door neighbor. So their house is going to be nice if the garage will be in the back. So I will have a buffer, not going outside my house and see a wall.
Yes.
Second thing I want to ask you is the second floor of the house should have not that many windows because I'm not going to lose the privacy of my backyard.
Right.
All the neighbors are 1-story houses. The one that is 2 stories in the end of the block doesn't bother anybody.
Okay.
And it has a much bigger lot.
Okay.
The third thing I'm going to ask you
And then
is,
we'll need to wrap it up because your time is already, your time's been up. So you need to.
do you have any question for me?
No, we don't typically ask questions of the public.
Now, the
So
last thing I want to
I'm
ask you,
sorry.
one last thing. I want to know if the people that did this house from the city have made a field investigation of the block.
Okay, we'll talk at the end, but thank
I
you for
would
your
really
time. I
appreciate that.
appreciate
Thank
you coming. Thank you. Ruben Sarkisian. Hello, welcome.
My name is Ruben Sarkisian. And thank you very much for allowing me to
Thank you.
talk. I live at 2802 Cañada Boulevard, and I have about 37 feet of common wall between my yard and connecting to the neighbors, this project wall. Originally I had thought that the city of Glendale is a city which preserves and protects the old buildings. This building is about 100 years old, about. I know we are not in the historic district. The other side of the street is the historic district. And we hear every day that people are buying properties demolishing and making up new buildings. Let alone this one is a two-story that in our block, which is between Cañada, Glorieta, and Woodland, there is about 17 or 18 houses, which only one of them is two-story. And this project not only will not preserve the characteristics of the City of Glendale project, it will be damaging all the neighboring neighbors, their privacy. As far as mine, which I have a swimming pool, backyard, and all the dust, debris will come into my property.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Patty Ring?
I'm Patty Ring. I live at 1720 Glorieta, which is 2 doors down from the proposed new neighbors here. And I have a couple points to make. I'll go as quickly as I can because I know time is limited.
Correct.
In regards to the neighborhood survey on staff, the average home size in the neighborhood is 1,339 square feet. More than 60% of these homes are under 1,500 square feet. On Glorieta, between Cañada and Rustic, our little nook, 90% of the homes are under 1,600 square feet. The proposed home will be twice the size of 90% of our street, which is a great concern to us. The two largest homes, both under 2,700, there are no homes that are 3,100 square feet in our neighborhood. One is a multifamily unit on the opposite side of Cañada, which features a very different neighborhood scale. Because between Cañada and Verdugo is this little cozy nook with smaller bungalow-style homes. And the lot size of that is nearly double that of 1712 Glorieta. The other, located on corner of Cañada and Glorieta, as Anna mentioned earlier, the lot size is 1,500 square feet larger than 1712 Glorieta. It was built more than 30 years ago when the design review process was not nearly what it is today. Think of the El Tovar McMansion days. That's when that work was done. Consideration should be given to the precedent you will be setting within our cozy home and bungalow-style neighborhood by approving a home of this size. Again, the mass and scale, it's an irreversible step. If we go this large, it's going to completely change our neighborhood forever because it will set a precedent for others to do it. And I encourage you to visit the little streets and see how tiny the homes are. And as far as privacy, this is a very important one. The lots in our neighborhood are very narrow and small. And
Okay, that's
proposing a second story is going to infringe on privacy. There is no open space buffer to give anybody a sense of privacy. And this is our own personal spaces that are going to be observed.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much. And also Bert Ring? Or do you want to speak as well? Okay, that's, would you like to come up and speak as well? I see a speaker card in your hands. Oh, welcome.
In the 1716 Glorieta Avenue.
Okay,
We'll just need him to fill out a speaker card.
Be
okay,
the one more
okay,
against this one.
okay. Can you state your name, please?
Rudy Aharonian.
Thank
I
you.
live in the 1716 Glorieta Avenue. My first question is, how come there was no survey from the city for about what block is? She said the right thing is in between Rustic and Cañada, there are 5 houses on one side and 3 houses on another side. Okay? One of them is mine. That one. The lots are small, and this thing is gonna be a monstrosity in there. I'm gonna say it clear. I'm gonna lose my sunsets and my view to the hills. I worked 30 years in the post office in Beverly Hills for this. No, I'm gonna fight this. Another thing, this gentleman, I'm talking about the garages in front. Those were a different design. Those were 50 years ago. Today, the things are different. They need to understand that. But they talk about compromises with the city, and how about the compromises with the neighbors? Where are we? Do we count? No, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, there was a neighborhood survey. It's attached to the staff report. It's one of the exhibits.
Correct, thank you.
I haven't seen a survey in there.
It's in the packet.
Yes, and it's available for the public. It's available on the city's website, where the packets and all the information is available for the public to review.
Correct, thank you.
And if we can get the speaker to please provide us with the speaker card, we do need that information.
Okay, we can get it from you at the end. That's okay. Are there any callers at this time?
No, no callers at this time.
Okay, that was my last speaker card. There are no other speakers, correct? Okay. And now the app, no, unfortunately not. But the applicant does have a chance to come and rebut and respond to the comments made. And so I would, only one of you, so if you can decide who, if the designer or, okay, thank you.
You come to the microphone.
Come up to the microphone and speak with us. Yeah, thank you.
I do understand the concerns of privacy because that's what we keep hearing. However, I think we all need to keep in mind that just because you may be an owner of a two-story house, it doesn't mean you have the time or the interest to be a watchtower, as some people like to call it. Both my husband and I are hardworking, still in school, going after our careers with 2 kids. The last thing on our mind is to be a watchtower. I would like to make that very clear because that's what we keep hearing. And as far as comments saying like, oh, this neighborhood is, the houses are smaller and bigger, we need to keep into consideration this is a brand new build. Whenever you're doing a brand new build, as much as obviously you want to appeal to the city of Glendale and the regulations in the neighborhood, you also are not going to go and build a 900 or 1,100 square foot with the low ceilings because that's what was built in 1931. We tried our best as far as this gentleman's concern about the neighbors. I myself with my husband have went and actually introduced ourselves to every single neighbor. We have actually spoken to them. The only neighbors we didn't know, to be quite honest, I guess, are the ones right in the back of us. I'll be honest, we did not, introduce ourselves to them because we just wasn't sure exactly, how to approach the situation. But most of the other surrounding neighbors, we have approached, we have let them know about our plan. We have let them know what's going on. And to say that we are not taking our neighbors into consideration sounds a bit unfair, honestly. Because we have done our part in every way to give them a firsthand, hey, they even have my number. I've given most of the women my number, and I said, please call me, text me with any questions, because, just in case, I want to have an open communication, and I haven't heard one thing until today. So, thank you.
Do we have questions for the applicant?
No.
I don't have any questions at this time. Okay. Well, great. It was, yeah, I said that just one person could speak. Thank you. So at this portion of the meeting, we're going to close the public portion of the hearing, and we're going to open it up for deliberation amongst the board. Board Member Welsh, would you like to take us off here?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, so we're obviously in a position here as this board to adjudicate matters, okay? So it is up to us to balance the interest, because obviously, you're absolutely correct. I have done a site visit, just for the record. I walked the neighborhood over the weekend, so I am familiar with it. I'm familiar with the woodlands. You're right, it is very much predominantly a single-story area, and it has a certain character and charm to it, as evidenced by the fact that there are as a historical district. So, unfortunately, this home is not in that historical district. This neighborhood is, so it doesn't necessarily have to follow those same guidelines. But that being said, we are always very sensitive to the neighborhood context. The design guidelines specify that we need to make sure that new designs are responsive to and adapted to the surrounding context. So that's this neighborhood, this little street here, this little pocket of Glorieta that's you all love so much. So we definitely will take that into consideration as we're deliberating on this. That said, they do have the right to tear the house down and rebuild a new house. So we have to basically just try to work with them to make sure that the design that they're doing is going to be that's responsive, that's blended into the context as best we can do. And so, you know, the issue of a two-story, unfortunately, we really can't. There's no grounds for us to say you can't have a two-story. The best we can do is make sure that where they're putting in a two-story, that they're doing things like they're addressing the setbacks, that it's not towering over the neighbors, not towering over the street, not grossly invading privacy of the nearby properties. So that is what we're going to try and do here tonight. So we're going to talk about these things and try to address them. No, I'm sorry, I can't take questions. So that is what our job is here. And we evaluate this on the three metrics that the staff report covers, which is the site planning, the mass and the scale of it, and the design and the detailing. So that is our purview here. That is what we can do, is work within those three things. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands, you know, what we're working with here as we're evaluating the project. So, that said, I'll go into my thoughts on the project, and I will first compliment Milka. I think you did an excellent job with the staff report. I think that all of your findings are very well considered, and I think will be guiding us basically in the direction we're going here. On the garage, you know, I'm torn because I do recognize that the whole area is predominantly garages in the rear. But this particular street does not have that condition. It's about 50-50 in terms of garages at the front and garages in the rear. So I'm not sure I can find grounds, you know, to make a finding that the garage must be in the rear just because the area generally has that. So that's where, again, local context is important. Are we just looking at the local area, or are we just looking at the whole region, you know, as it were? So from that perspective, I'm a little bit more inclined to say the garage at the front is okay. But the other three conditions, I think I am 100% in agreement. The situation, you know, when I went to the site, okay, the story poles were up, and it is towering above the next door property. So I guess that's your property right there. So right now we have a setback, a side setback of 12 feet with maybe a 10-foot tall, maybe 11-foot tall house, 12 foot from the property line. This is now 6 feet from the property line and 27.5 feet tall. It's very tall. So the side setback issue is something I'm going to insist upon having as a condition, because it has to be stepped back. You can't have it towering over that neighboring property like that. That is not at all in keeping with the design guidelines to try to blend it into the neighborhood context. So, and I'm not saying that you have to have, you know, a 9-foot wide bedroom. I'm looking at the plans. There's plenty of opportunity here to adjust that second floor in. You have a 16-foot wide stair hall in the middle. You don't need to have a 16-foot wide stair hall in the middle. Now, it's not our purview to tell you how to design it in, you know, the inside of the house, but I'm looking at the plans and I'm saying I could find plenty of ways to squeeze that in. So, so I think that we really do need to squeeze that in and have there an increased side setback on the east side of the house as well as what's done on the west side of the house. Height, definitely 12.5 or 12'8" ceilings is excessive. It doesn't need to be that tall. You can have it down to, it doesn't necessarily need to be down to 9 feet, as the staff is saying, but, you know, maybe 10 feet. 10 feet is still a very nice tall ceiling for a single-family home. You don't need 12.5. It's going to feel cavernous in there, to be honest. It's not going to feel very comfortable from a home's perspective. So I think that you're better off with a lower ceiling anyway. And the fact that, you know, you're maximizing the FAR, you're maximizing, you know, your potential here with the height. So not very much compromise in that, you know? Maybe you've done some compromise with staff before, but I don't see that here. So I think that you need to make some more adjustments here. And then finally, windows on the design part. Yeah, I think the windows need to be restudied. This 8-foot by 8-foot window at the front is just way overscale. It doesn't work for the neighborhood. I think that nobody wants to be staring into your dining room as they're walking by your house, and you're like in a display case. So I think that that's too much. And I also note that the posts, the columns for the porch, they're like framing the door and framing the window, but they're not even. It's asymmetrical. It doesn't look right. So I think that if you want to have a design which is in keeping with the more traditional design language of the area, that you should have a consistently spaced columns. And I think that if your goal is framing windows in there, you can have windows that can fit within those columns and be much more in keeping with the more traditional sort of style of the neighborhood. I also think that the comment about the sliding windows is appropriate. They should not be sliding windows. Probably hung windows would be my recommendation, considering that it is, again, a much more traditional kind of a neighborhood. You can still have a nice modern look to it, even with double hung windows. So that's what I would be recommending here. I don't know whether we feel it's something that these can be worked out with staff, or we should actually ask him to do a return for redesign, because these are pretty significant changes we're talking about. So I would be okay with the return for redesign and give additional feedback to them as well once we've sort of deliberated together. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Board Member Welsh.
Thank
Board Member
you.
Chagoyan?
Yes, thank you, Board Member Welsh. I think Board Member Welsh summed it up pretty nicely, and as far as what is in our purview, what this board is here to do. I know there were a lot of privacy concerns, view concerns. That's nothing that is in our control to say that they have to change their design for those reasons. But I too am torn, because I think from a design perspective, I think it's a beautiful home, right? The design and detailing is nice. It's the context that's not working here, right? So I live in the Woodlands, so I walk in this neighborhood every day. I visited your neighborhood and I visited the street. I was also torn with the garage because I don't think I'm in agreement that it has to be at the rear because of the local context of this street. The houses there, majority have the garage at the front. I'm not crazy about the super wide driveway, though. I think that takes away from that small local neighborhood feel. The house is large, right? So you're maximizing the FAR, you're maximizing square footage, you're kind of trying to do everything on this property that maybe is not going to be what's best for that lot, right? I get it, it's a dream home, family of 4. I'm a family of 4 as well, but I live in less than half of the size of this house, and we're fine. So I'm torn because I also feel like the conditions are significant enough that it can't just be approve it with the conditions. I am in agreement with all of the conditions with the exception of the garage. Absolutely, the first floor, the height needs to be lowered, just from a proportion standpoint as well. 12 feet and then 9 feet, it's unnecessary. And I also think that grand staircase is beautiful, doesn't work for your property, for this house, right? Like, it's something that can work in a different home, in a much larger property, larger house. So I think, with all that said, I'm leaning towards the return for redesign, because I think you're almost there. You can still, and I agree, we can't say you can't have a second story, unfortunately, right? I understand the next door neighbor. Currently, the houses are, pretty short in comparison to what's being proposed here, but from a design perspective, if they can accommodate and step away from your property more, lean the second story more towards look at the context, lean it towards your other neighbor that really has you have such a large gap between you and that neighbor, and they have a second story, but they're further away from you, right? So site planning perspective, mass and scale perspective needs a lot more work. The design is lovely, but I think we need to bring it down a notch and have it fit the property in which you are, right?
Thank you. I concur, and I do think that this is one that we should bring back for redesign. I appreciate staff's report. I think it was very pointed. It currently doesn't meet design guidelines. The neighborhood, I drove by as well, and the neighborhood is really quaint, and this is just way out of scale for the neighborhood. Again, height is not something that we restrict, and we're not opposed to 2 stories necessarily. It's just, it really needs to be set back more significantly from the neighboring property that's so small. And in terms of the garage, while I agree that it being in the front is maybe consistent on this particular street, I do think right now it's designed more prominently, so it could be the portion that's recessed and then the entry. I think that needs to be considered, that right now there's this wide drive, it's set forward, the garage is set forward, and there's this kind of runway of trees leading to it that it further accentuates the garage, and I think the prominence of it needs to be diminished and taken back. And you may find that you get more of a setback if you do put it further back from the neighbor. It'll feel less massive adjacent to that smaller home. Yeah, and I think bringing down the ceiling heights, I agree with all of Ms. Toledo's points. And in terms of the height, the massing needs to be reduced. It can be more efficient, definitely, as you mentioned, with the stair. Yeah, and materials, I concur with the window condition. I think the one condition that we need to talk about is the garage, and if we want to condition it in another way and make it less prominent, perhaps, but that would be my recommendation, that I would still like to see something in there if they're redesigning and trying to break down the mass, I would like it to not be the most important thing that you're seeing. Overall, though, I do think approve of the materials being used. The wood is nice, other than the window material. Let's see. I think that's it. Just bringing down the scale, and I would love to open it up to my colleagues regarding the more specific conditions.
Yeah, so I since it seems like we're coalescing towards the return for redesign, I think I would also give some additional feedback to the applicant to come back. And one of the things that I would look at is other new homes that have been done in predominantly single-story neighborhoods, particularly recently, because you get some, and staff can help give you some places to look at. One of the things that really strikes the viewer on this one is this 2 gable ends facing the street. It really increases the prominence of that second story. If you were to potentially take one of those and push it back, and you can go back, you have this big veranda that you've got in the back of the house. You can extend the house over that, so you can just push the mass a little bit further backwards and use more roof, have more roof visible at the front there, and push the mass back, pull it away from the sides. You can really accomplish having a second story without it looking too much like a second story when you're in one of these neighborhoods. So that's what I would definitely recommend, is that you try and study different ways of doing that second story design so that it pulls it a little further back and disguises it a little bit better from the streets.
So am I hearing perhaps another condition regarding using tools to bring down the massing, other tools?
Yeah, sure. I
right.
mean, to work with,
Work with
this
staff.
we're not approving it, we're sending it back for
Right,
redesign, which
right.
is, these are
This
more
is
like
true.
guidance, you know? So yeah, that would be fine to basically restudy the second floor forms to, potentially adjust and reduce the apparent massiveness of the second story addition, of the second story of the property. And in terms of the garage, yeah, I think we can leave the garage in there as a comment, but just try to reduce the prominence of
Prominence,
it.
right.
Because you're right, it is very prominent. The double wide driveway is very prominent. It's, I mean, not to belittle Santa Clarita, but it looks more like a Santa Clarita kind of presentation, So I think that if you could do something to minimize that, that would be very helpful.
And I would also, again, that east elevation, I think that's, setting back the top story on the east and working on that. Right now, that elevation is a wall.
Right.
And so that
Yeah.
really needs attention.
Yes.
Agreed.
Okay.
Anything else? Any other feedback?
No, I think we
Any other
covered
comments that you
everything.
can give to the applicant here to?
Assist.
We'll kind of go over, if you'd like, some of the conditions.
that would be great.
That I've been hearing. And also, I just wanted to point out that we had received some correspondence from neighbors, and those were forwarded to the board. So I
Correct, we
just want to make
received
sure
them.
it's acknowledged that, yes, we did receive letters, including correspondence from the local HOA, from the Woodlands as well.
Yes, they were received. Thank you.
So it sounded like I heard we want to keep most of the conditions, if not all of them, with some adjustments. In terms of the first one, we could start one by one, relocating the garage to the rear. So we're going to strike that, but rather reword it so as to, you're not opposed to having a detached garage. It's more like setting it further away from the street. So it's, again, not that focal point prominence feature facing the street. So we will reword that, okay? In terms of condition 2, it sounds like the board is in agreement to have the project step back the second floor further away from the ground level. We focused on the sides, meaning the east, but in addition to the east, I'm hearing also the front should go further away from the front. And that was one of the points that staff originally had brought up, because it was much closer to the street. And again, this was the end result. So that has always been a concern as well originally for staff. Again, the intent was there, but it sounds like the board wants to see it further pushed back in its entirety, okay? So not just a piece here or one form here, the whole is what I'm hearing. Facade of that second floor should go further
So it has to
back
be
with
the
some,
whole,
with
but
some,
at least,
w-
I'm
with
thinking
some
at least
manipulation of
half of
forms.
it, to be
Correct.
pulled back,
I
and
think half would be sufficient.
more visible
Well, we
roof,
won't put a number down, but at least
Yeah,
the applicant is here so they understand.
yeah, exactly.
Okay. In terms of reduce the ceiling height on the ground floor, sounds like it's a keeper.
Yeah. I don't
so-
think we need to be prescriptive about it 9 feet, but just definitely reducing it.
Okay, so I'll just remove the 9, again, like you pointed out, not to be specific in terms of number, but,
Right.
okay. And use a high-quality material, whether it's fiberglass or aluminum clad, we'll leave it up to the applicants. However, I did hear Board Member Welch mention hung operation would be more appropriate, or?
I think the window plan needs to be redesigned, and to be consistent. Right now, it's very inconsistent. You've got this big plate glass window, you've got some sliders, you've got hung, you've got, so I think that it needs to have a more consistent design language with all of the windows to be holistic.
So that brings me to another comment that was raised about, to your point, the square picture window at the front. So instead of just pointing out the one item, so just have more of a general condition to address the design of an operation and installation of all the windows to be
Consistent design.
appropriately
language.
designed.
Consistent, holistic
Consistent,
design,
okay.
yes. Mhm.
Okay, the other comment I had heard consider, and I don't know if this was a consideration or not, but that's how I worded it. Consider adjusting the floor plan for purposes of reducing or finding ways to reduce the mass and scale of the house.
Correct.
So we're not necessarily saying reduce the size, just kind of find ways within the floor plan.
Well, I think that's, it all depends on the design. I've seen projects that have maxed out FAR but didn't look like it
Right.
because it was so well designed and broken up and, done appropriately.
So
So
I-
I think that there's ways that they can accomplish their FAR goal
Yes.
here to max it out, but not look like that.
Correct.
But
Okay.
if it's going to be so prominent, then yeah, they're going to have to squeeze that down square footage-wise, so.
So we won't include that as a condition, but for the applicant has heard what's being articulated here, so then they know what to do.
A consideration would be helpful, so that.
Still want to keep it then as a consideration?
Versus a condition, correct?
Okay, that's how I originally had worded it, so we'll keep it.
To reduce the size.
And then do we want to be specific about trying to reduce the driveway width too?
I think that would be good.
Yeah, I think we probably should,
So I do
yes.
have that condition as well. Well, before I get to, let's go on the driveway. So I was hearing to reduce the size of, or the width of the driveway approach, narrower, and then it widens as you approach the actual garage. Would you like to have something like that in the condition, which the board in the past has suggested in condition for other projects as well? So narrowing the driveway approach, and then again, as you approach the garage,
I think
widen it.
currently, because the existing condition is a shared driveway, I think when you were showing the Google Maps, it was evident that you're sharing the driveway apron with your next-door neighbor. You're also completely adding another large apron of the same size and combining it all together, so it's like, two large driveways, but as one. I think utilize what you have there, maybe just slightly, you can make it a little bit wider so that you are able to utilize your side to go into your two-car garage, but I don't think you need necessarily a four-car garage opening, because that's what you have right now.
So basically trying to keep the curb cut as it is intact.
Right, and if you have to slightly widen it, I think is fine, but not an entirely
Yeah.
16 or 17 foot more. I think that's overkill.
Unnecessary.
Yeah. So
Might also save the street tree that had to be taken out too.
utilize existing apron. You can widen it slightly if needed to work out with the garage placement, but I don't think it needs to be completely clear of the new garage driveway.
The driveway apron itself, that would be something Public Works would have to work with the applicant on, so
Right.
staff wouldn't really get involved in that piece.
Okay.
But in terms of the driveway on private property,
Oh,
the
that part.
design of that, then yes, that's where the site planning comes in. Does that make sense?
Well, that goes
Yeah,
back
but
to
that
her
would dictate
comment of,
what Public
yeah,
Works would do.
right.
Right.
I
and
think so.
We don't know at this point.
Right.
Okay.
No, I think it goes back to her board member Lockeroff's point about like the prominence of the garage. So I think it goes hand in hand. If they're able to lessen that prominence and,
What the applicant
Shorten
could
the-
do is they should meet with Public Works Engineering to determine what Public Works at the end of the day.
is going to require.
Exactly,
right.
what are they going to require? And then they can decide how they want to design the driveway apron and the actual driveway on private property.
Right, okay.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Yes, thank you.
There was a comment about the front porch columns. There was one in particular, I think it was that one closer to the, I want to say it was this one that was not very
Yeah, they're
proportional.
they're not balanced, so
Okay.
it just looked.
Restudy the front front
Restudy that,
porch
yes.
columns.
Right. And it might change significantly if, the garage is moving or, so.
Yeah.
I think that was reduce the driveways. So that's pretty much it. That's all I had.
Correct.
Okay,
Other
so with
than
that.
that, it sounded like the colors, materials, texture, finishes.
Yeah,
We were good.
we were good in
It's-
terms of the
okay.
materials and
So it
other than
seems
the
like we're
windows.
just focusing more on mass and scale and then site planning as it relates to the driveway
Yeah, I think
and the garage
correct.
location.
Yeah, I think the
the
largest
windows.
thing is just,
Yeah.
considering the mass and scale and
And the context,
And the
yes, the
context,
neighborhood
right,
context,
and your,
yeah.
what the neighbors, look like.
Okay, there's a motion from the
Yeah,
board
I'll make the
for
motion to return for redesign with all of the different conditions and considerations that we've put together here.
Second,
And I'll second.
Board Member Chagayan. And just so the public knows, return for redesign means that the project is not approved, okay? It will come back to the design review board at a later time. And we don't know what that later time is because the applicant has to redesign the project.
Yeah, and this will give the
We can
applicant
talk
also
after
an
the meeting.
opportunity
We
to
have a
revisit it,
motion-
work with the neighborhood as well
We have a motion on the floor, so let
to
me do roll call.
design.
And then if there's any question from someone in the public, then I will
Answer after.
answer after.
Correct.
Okay, that was a motion to return for redesign, Board Member Welch, and there was a second by Board Member Chagayan. Board Member Welch,
Yes.
Board Member Chagayan,
Yes.
Madam Chair Lockruff.
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0, return for redesign.
Thank you.
Okay, and
Thank
I do
you.
not have any staff comments at this point, so,
I will move to adjourn.
okay.
To adjourn.
We are adjourning at 6:13.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you. Good luck.